Hey, welcome to the mass media, pop culture, music culture, underground culture, part of the Yahweh's Renaissance Ministry broadcast. In this part of the broadcast, I like to, explore other parts of our culture, kind of take a look at basically where things are at, historically speaking, and it's definitely a sign of the times where the music industry's at, what kind of music is coming out, and what kinds of performance art is coming out, what kind of movies are coming out, and you see over time if you look at the whole evolution of the music industry or Hollywood or underground culture, how things start at a certain place and then they evolve over time, or maybe devolve over time. They go in the opposite direction. So it's a little tricky, in terms of looking at the historical evolution of things. It's more of a, like I said, a devolution in terms of kind of regression versus progression, going in the opposite direction. So anyway, I like to focus on just bring things to into perspective for people of where things are at in the world, and it's rather unfortunate. I have to say that some people are working towards the implementation of the kingdom of heaven on earth, and then a lot of people are working towards the implementation of the kingdom of hell on earth, and it's sad to see these things unfold. And basically, over time, I'd like to, make sure that, look at things, you know, just to kind of understand how things fall into a biblical perspective. And again, I've mentioned this many times before, but I definitely feel like we're living at in the latter days, the end times. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but and there are certain things that are happening in the world that are just proof positive of that reality. And this is kind of one of those things that I wanted to bring to light. And maybe people have heard of these kinds of activities, but it's not. I'm trying to glorify these types of activities. I just want to make people aware of, I mean, really, in essence, in so many ways, there's so many different components of it, but we're literally seeing like the kingdom of hell on earth literally unfold in front of our eyes, and it just seems that's the whole direction of it all. Whether it's the fact that we live in a kind of modern day Sodom and Gomorrah on the one side, where we live in a world where corruption is rampant, drug addiction is rampant, things like biker gangs and just neo-Nazi gangs and all types of gangs are prevalent, and cartels, and really the essentially the dark side of reality exists. Satanism all throughout, um, music and popular culture, and we see it, all throughout like music videos and hip hop videos or rock videos, heavy metal videos, and it's really just kind of putting everything in place for the rise of the anti-messiah. I think I guess you could say that that's what where we're at historically speaking. So anyway, I just want to share that with everybody, and just kind of show people some of the things that are going on in the world right now that they might not be aware of. And I'd say take caution in what you're going to see now. It's nothing. I mean, it's definitely graphic, but it's not, necessarily like pornographic or anything. So, I just want to share this with people just to see what they think. And, you know, uh, I don't know, something in my eyes. I don't know what it is, but I just want to share what we have on, what's happening in the world. I mean, this is just an example of another thing that's happening in the world that, people might not be aware of. And it's just another, again, sign of the times. So this is what people call what's called suspension. Um, Unfortunately, this is like a normal thing now. A lot of people are are into it, or they're learning about it, or they're seeing it. But this is just like some thing that's happening, and just performance art spaces, and uh, different versions of what you might call like hellfire clubs of the present, or like performances are going. So just want to share this, and I'm not trying to glorify it or anything, but suspension is becoming pretty prevalent in certain circles, underground circles. They're really getting into things like suspension, where basically hooks are put into people, and it's kind of scary. And I can imagine that probably a lot of people that get into this, that they probably um you know they probably have some kind of who knows, like diseases, hepatitis, from all the kinds of, and you know and you know just the the metal penetrating their skin and getting under the skin, and who knows what's happening internally with this kind of behavior. But it just kind of freaked out. I mean, we live in a very freaky, weird, crazy world right now, and it's unfortunate that these things are happening. But
And I've known a million ways they bring you down when your world ignites. You need to
yeah, so if you look at this, I mean, it again, I'm not doing this to glorify it.
jump
Just
into the flames
so
of vanished ideals in your.
So that she actually has hooks in the back. So this is like actually going into her skin. These like hooks that are um holding this girl up, which is kind of crazy. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, it's like, you know, hanging, dangling from this like metal apparatus that's, holding her up above the stage. And, basically this is like a hook in her actual muscles in her back, which is just beyond insane. I mean, to me, I and there's other groups, and I'm not even going to get into like all the. I just want to show you an example of the kinds of things that are happening. This particular girl, I'm not going to mention her name. I don't want even people looking her up, because I don't know. I think she's maybe gone to the dark side permanently, but she's pretty heavy into things like Satanism, and uh, things like I don't know, like just all kinds of torture, S&M, things like that. And it's just sad. This is where we're at historically speaking. And, there's other versions of this kind of crazy, performance art, I guess you call it. And it's just shocking. But, she's literally dangling from this apparatus above the stage based on these hooks. So there's nothing else. She's not holding on to anything. I mean, she's literally dangling from the ceiling, based on the hooks that are inside of her skin. So if you don't consider this satanic, I mean, I don't know what, and she's literally a Satanist. So I mean, it's not that far off. It's not me like, oh, this is evil and satanic. I mean, it is evil and satanic. It's so bad. I mean, and it's like, where is this happening? I mean, this is probably, I think this is in LA, which shocking. It's happening in LA, which is the, Los Angeles, city of sin, or one of the cities of sin. But,
Your angered eyes,
it's very ritualistic.
withered years and burned out minds. And I know.
Yeah, and it's just almost like kind of like a like incense burner or something like that. I don't know. It's just shocking, but she's just dangling there, like this whole thing, like where she's dangling above the
And
stage like
I
this.
know they've silenced your mind, but they'll never, ever
yeah, and then I mean, the reason why I'm sharing this kind of stuff is just out of awareness. I mean, that's about it. But it's just shocking. I mean, it's like literally people working towards the implementation of the kingdom of hell on earth beyond all the evil in the different government systems in the world and spiritual wickedness in high places. I mean, this is happening just, who knows? I mean, you just go up to any major city and you probably go to some club that has events like this. I mean, up in Providence, they used to have Club Hell where they had people, hooked up to different apparatuses in the against the wall, people tied up and who knows, like all kinds of crazy stuff happening up there. But even these guys are like toting her off the stage. I mean, they're just like these guys right here.
Never
Like, look at
ever
these.
go home. Never ever ever go home. Never ever ever go home. Never ever go home. Never ever ever see a world change.
Yeah, and some of that too is basically, it's so much of it is theatrical. People like to dress up in costumes. They like to look evil. They like to do just crazy stuff where they're it's like shocking. People want to have the shock value, shock art, if you want to call it that. They like to they're masochistic. They like to torture themselves, or they're sadistic. They like to torture other people, and maybe it's part of some kind of sexual oriented excitement. But you know, it I don't know. It's just shocking. But then there's this guy over here. Is literally hanging from a total just same kind of thing, hanging from this apparatus that's like hooked into him in so many different ways, like a bunch of different hooks, and he's dangling there. And it's at this place called the Torture Garden. I think it's in London. Um, but this is stuff going on right now. I mean, if this doesn't is not a perfect example of hell on earth, and setting the stage for the rise of the anthemicide, that's really what's happening. And I know this is maybe shocking, but I mean, I've seen a lot in my life. I mean, I realize stuff like this, like whatever. I mean, I almost laugh at it. I mean, but in a lot of ways, it's really just sad. Sad that people, are into these types of things, and it's not. I mean, this is not something like a believer in the Messiah would do. Hanging from different apparatuses with different kinds of hooks in the system, and based on some kind of sexual fetish or whatever. But it's just creepy, just creepy and just evil. So much of the stuff. And guy, see, you could see all like the hooks in the guy, and he's just dangling. I mean, I don't know, maybe he has something underneath him right there, but I think for the most part he's just dangling from this apparatus. And people, they just do this kind of stuff as if, I don't know, it's just shocking, really, really shocking. So just wanted to share that. I mean, I'm not trying to scare anybody or anything. I mean, it's just, to me, it's a sign of the times. If you don't believe that we're living in the end times, then then you just don't, I guess. But I mean, I definitely think we're living in the end times, and that's just a perfect example of one um, version of this reality that we live in. That's very much almost like essentially living in like the kingdom of hell on earth. It's coming out in so many ways, and it's happening on so many different levels. But yeah, I just want to share one more thing real quick. Um, this artist, I don't even want to like celebrate the guy, right? It's not meant to celebrate the guy, but I mean, he just gets into some really crazy performances. Like, for example, this particular image. Um, Like if you look at it, it has all these different things like attached to him. This guy, Louis Fleischauer, but trying to cover that up. But anyway, the people in his performances, they have all these apparatuses. They're hanging by these suspension wires, by all these hooks. He's got some performance art group called Aesthetic Meat Front, and it's just another example of, like, just all the crazy things that are happening right now. He's always got like these like apparatuses like hooked into him and hooked around him, and does these performances with this dark ambient music and drums and stuff, and it's like horrific. But people like that stuff. They're really heavy into like horror and that kind of stuff. And there's another example of stuff that the guy does. He sticks like these crazy needles into his eyes. I mean, this is, and I'm not trying to celebrate any of this by any means. Trust me. I mean, I'm just like showing you the kind of stuff that's happening in the world right now. Here's, an example of, something like this lady has this whole apparatus over her head, like looking like some kind of distorted monster person. Um, but the performances are pretty grotesque and pretty horrific, and usually like filled with a lot of kind of nudity oriented stuff, but satanic. You know what I mean? Like they wear these like headsets or head dresses with like antlers and stuff, and it's very ritualistic, very maybe shamanistic. For example, here's I think this is a woman wearing some kind of fetish mask thing. I don't know. So it's sad. I mean, like where things are at. I mean, that we're have these things happen in the world. It's really kind of just shocking. Really, really weird and unfortunate. But that's something I just wanted to share, that, I just to kind of put things in perspective. That's why it's so important right now to be a believer, to believe in the Messiah, the Mashiach, to celebrate Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and Shavuot, the Feast of Weeks, and Yom Teruah, the Feast of Trumpets, and Yom Kippurim, the Day of Atonements, and to prepare ourselves for the Messiah, the return of the Messiah, to destroy the force of evil once and for all, because we're living literally in a kind of hell on earth on the one side. I mean, there's definitely like the heaven on earth component overall, but realistically, we're living in a type of hell on earth, you know, realistically. So anyway, just want to share that. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I think it's important, to be aware of what's happening in the world and how extreme things have gotten, and really not a very long period of time. I mean, these kinds of performance art things have been growing over time, but we've really hit a crescendo in the last, maybe 20 years. So anyway, just be aware and stay safe and stay blessed.